It's just coming up in 20 to 8 on OTB AM. We're going to kick things off with the Irish Daily Star this morning, which is a picture of Paul Pogba and Zinedine Zidane around the pool in Dubai. There's really nothing more to say about it other than it's the two lads around the pool in Dubai. Woodward hits back at Red critics' insult Ed. It says here that he's sticking by his man is the short story of Ed Woodward there. That he's also saying that the idea that they have put commercial people in charge of the football operations at Manchester United is a damn insulting to the club and to the people who work there. And as I said, that photographed the two lads in conversation, two former France World Cup winners in conversation around the pool in Dubai. I tried to read into it to see what was there. Oh, they had a secret liaison. They didn't really. They just seemed to kind of bump into each other.
The look on their faces seems to suggest it's, fancy meeting you here in this 5-star plus resort.
When you're like, is that Paul Pogba? Oh yeah, there we are. He's got his United gear on him.
I don't think Zidane talks in that high voice when he sees Paul Pogba. There's a clear example in the papers today of their differing target markets. It's the eve of Ireland playing the All Blacks at the World Cup.
It's true.
And Paul Pogba is on the back of pretty much all the tabloids.
A couple of other little bits and bobs here. Ericsson will get the job. Dane writes John Fallon here. Ireland's nemesis Christian Eriksen insists that Denmark will clinch Euro qualification at Dublin. I mean, it's difficult to argue with him. Yes, we can stop the All Blacks again, writes Mick Scully there. And Canning fears for Galway. Kieran Cunningham writing that Joe Canning is more than concerned now that there's still no appointment for the Galway hurling job. Same
picture on the back of the Mirror. Wish you were here. Injured Pogba chats with Zidane in Dubai, a meeting that is sure to set tongues wagging again. I thought actually one of the more interesting parts of this was that Paul Pogba's on crutches.
Yeah.
Because it was only 2 days ago that there seemed to be a suggestion that he might well be fit to play for Manchester United this weekend. So clearly, if he's on crutches, it's quite a serious foot injury that he has. That doesn't look like a secret meeting, let's get away from the rest of the world. And
I'd say, in fact, maybe both of them are like, oh,
but maybe that's how these things start. Maybe next summer Paul Pogba's sitting in the Bernabeu, he's doing his keepy-uppies in the middle of the pitch and he goes, you know what, pure luck, I ran into Zinedine Zidane in Dubai and we had a chat. I told him I wasn't happy with life and he said, why don't you come play with us?
Who's Pogba's agent?
Mino Raiola.
Yeah. I'd say, like, the photograph is it's a pretty good photograph. I mean, pretty decent quality. It's not like somebody hiding in a hedge with an iPhone. Do you know what I'm getting at?
I see what you're getting at. I see what you're getting at. Again, Ed Woodward covered. Ed Woodward has hit back at Manchester United's critics and branded them insulting to Gunnar Solskjaer and his staff. This again basically saying that they do have a footballing staff, that he doesn't make the footballing decisions. He basically sent a message out to all the staff saying, we're starting on a new journey. Destination unknown, unfortunately, I guess. And Murray, we've done it so we can do it again. Conor Murray basically saying that because they've beaten the All Blacks twice, why not tomorrow?
Plenty of comments coming in. Morning from Milwaukee, says Jeffrey Linehan this morning. Good morning to you, Jeffrey, or good afternoon, most likely, where you are. Brian Meir, good morning to you in Newmarket, Auckland. Come on, Ireland, says Big Brian Meir. Good morning to you, Brian. I hope all is well with the world. And Stephen Greer, good morning, Rugby World. Kane on YouTube says All Blacks by 40.
Oof.
I mean, I hope not.
Well, if Ireland's form is where it was against Japan and Russia, that could happen.
Yeah, I was given 3 options yesterday. Ireland by a small margin, New Zealand by a small margin, or we get thumped by New Zealand. I mean,
what did you go with?
I mean, I'm saying that it could be any one of those things. You're plucking a bingo number after that, right? Like,
yeah, I never like those kind of spread bets because New Zealand could be 10 points up with 10 minutes to go and Ireland could be pressing to get a breakaway try and they scored 3 tries in the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. The Irish Independent this morning, you mentioned about the target market is rugby all the way here, apart from a couple of little bits and bobs at the top there. Murray, All Blacks are only human, he says there. Scrum half insists that Ireland have good reason to be confident against the world champions. And an interesting story from Rory O'Connor as well, saying that the All Blacks have undermined their own values by giving Sever Reece a starring role. And there's a full column about this inside the paper today, where Rory O'Connor picks through the selection of Sever Reece, who is obviously in this part of the world just a matter of just over a year ago. As Rory writes here, if he hadn't pleaded guilty to an assault in a New Zealand courtroom last October, he'd be in Galway preparing for their clash with the Cheetahs at the Sports Ground this weekend. He said instead the RFU in the Western Province opted to tear up his contract offer as a result of a case that saw him discharged without conviction with a fine of $750 New Zealand dollars after he assaulted his partner on a night out in Hamilton in July 2018. Worth giving this other detail in this story as well. Rory O'Connor writes, according to a police report, Reece told his girlfriend she needed to shut up and listen to him in stronger words before he was seen grabbing her and pulling her to the ground. A doorman intervened, but the victim was left with injuries to her upper face, waist and left knee. And I mean, the nub of the point is that while the RFU felt that Reece's actions did not fall into line with their values, the All Blacks do not appear to have had such concerns.
Yeah, it's a good piece by Rory, and the language around this in the various newspapers is interesting, and maybe it was a difficult to write in terms of how the court case went and that he was discharged. He initially pleaded guilty. So, for example, Jerry Thornley in the Irish Times, when he's talking about Reece, says he was set to join Connacht until they pulled out of the deal after the winger was cleared of a conviction after a court case for a domestic violence incident. Yeah. But obviously he had previously pleaded guilty, and at that case it was brought forward that Connacht were going to cancel his contract if he was found guilty. Now it turned out, even though he wasn't, that they still cancelled the contract.
Yeah, there's also been some weird stuff that's come out afterwards. I had heard before about this comment from a couple of different sources. Rory O'Connor puts it here as a quote from Steve Hansen, that it's not a gender thing, which is kind of bizarre to me, because in the first instance, it totally is.
But in this incident, it totally is.
Yeah, but as a thing, it's generally a gender thing. But also, even forgetting about that for a second, let's say it was like two fellas or two women. What difference would that make? What I'm saying is, this is not something to be endorsed, no matter your gender.
No, but this is professional sport where you go around in circles and make whatever excuses you can to get your best players on the pitch.
The no dickheads rule, it challenges the New Zealand have, and apologies for the language, but the New Zealand team have a no dickheads rule that they, as they talk about, they weed out any egos that are there early on, and they get rid of them, essentially.
It's interesting when you actually read through the quotes. So this culture was built, as Rory writes, by mental skills coach Gilbert Enoka. The World Champions Value System is a topic covered in many leadership books, and he has some quotes from it. They are people who put themselves ahead of the team, people who think they're entitled to things, expect the rules to be different for them, people operating deceitfully in the dark, are being unnecessarily loud about their work, is part of their no dickheads policy.
There's one comment: if you can't change people, change people.
Perhaps Steve Hansen looks at this situation with Sever Reece and says, I have changed the person. Or the person has changed.
Don't know. He was. The good thing is he was asked about it in the press conference yesterday. So there's plenty more quotes on that if you want to dig into them. That's Rory O'Connor's piece in the Irish Independent this morning.
Manchester United again on the back of the Sun. The Ole Trinity. Ed's three objectives. Manchester United come out fighting in the defence of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and also a line on Aaron Connolly. Obviously, Graham Potter, the Brighton manager, was asked about Aaron Connolly yesterday. Says the club are going to have to handle him with care, which means he might not be even in the team against Aston Villa tomorrow, despite scoring twice against Spurs. You have to remember he's 19 years old. In the last couple of weeks, he's made his Premier League debut and his full international debut. He's had a lot of excitement and a lot of exposure. He can deal with it, but it's more the way he plays football. He's a sprinter, so we just have to make sure he's able for it. So it seems to be actually physically they're thinking he's been to Georgia, he's been to Switzerland at 19.
It's sound policy, isn't it? Generally that happens anyway. The difficulty that we have with doing that, and he's bang on evidence of it, is that we have nobody else. The luxury to ease them in. We're like, well, you got to play, so away you go. But it would seem that that's a fairly wise policy.
You could argue he was eased in. He was used off the bench against Georgia when he probably should have started. No, you're not convinced? No. I think that if we had the luxury of having a bunch of players, we don't. We've no luxury. We know this.
So needs must, from an Irish point of view. But at club level, they can take a different view. The Irish Examiner this morning, again, it's very much rugby all the way here. A point to prove, Ronan O'Gara on the greatest test of Joe Schmidt's career. There's a couple of stories on this inside, including one that Joe Schmidt didn't call Ronan O'Gara. We are going to talk to Ronan a bit later on in the show.
We are going to call Ronan O'Gara.
We will chat to him about this, but Joe Schmidt says that he didn't tap into O'Gara for a scouting report. It's probably not a thing I'd do, really. I'd have a fair bit of respect. Ronan had a position in the Crusaders, so he knows a lot of players, but I haven't spoken to him, just because I think it's a little bit awkward if I'm pestering him for information which he had a loyalty, when he had a loyalty to a particular team at that time. I would think just call him. Let him say to you, listen, I know you're looking for a bit of info, but I actually can't give you too much. I feel a bit of loyalty. Let him answer that question. Why would you not? I don't understand why you wouldn't call him. I don't understand why both camps haven't been on to him this week saying, here, listen, if there's any little bit at all you can give us, hand it over.
Well, we can obviously ask Ronan the question, and maybe Joe Schmidt didn't call him. Maybe somebody else called him. Maybe there's just back channels of conversations.
Richie Murphy.
It will be fascinating if Ronan comes on and goes, yeah, I was surprised Joe didn't call, but I had a brilliant chat with Steve Hansen.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, he knows absolutely everything about Johnny Sexton right now.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I think he'd be more likely to give
He wouldn't do
information
such a thing, would he?
the other way.
Well,
It could be a consultancy role. We all like a consultancy role.
it's a professional game, you know.
The most interesting thing from Ronan's column, his own column inside here, says in relation to New Zealand, their consistent capacity to get the moment right is always impressive. So you're looking around the newspapers this morning to get a feel one way or the other as to which way people are thinking this game is going to go. He says about that, getting the moment right, not to over-egg it, just to get it dead on. That's such an underrated skill. If the game was played on paper, New Zealand would win, but at the moment, their form is also better. And if you're still looking for crumbs of comfort, their players have more rugby in them and they're more battle-hardened than Ireland.
Great. Well, that positivity coming away in just a few minutes' time. The Times, the English Times, Jones tells Farrell this is do or die. England coach takes gamble and axes forward. This obviously the big story from English rugby, that Eddie Jones has decided to leave George Ford on the bench. It looked very much throughout this World Cup that Owen Farrell was going to play in the centre, but he's gone back with Owen Farrell at out half, and he's made, it seems as though he's just going for the big boys, that this is going to be a big physical battle he's expecting, and he's decided to make a change. As usual with Eddie Jones, he's like, I don't see the big deal. Just pick my team. Yeah. What's your problem? Couple of other stories. Manchester City have raised questions over the sporting integrity of the Premier League. No, they haven't just looked in the mirror. They're questioning the festive fixture list, which appeared to give Liverpool a competitive advantage. You can see why they're a bit annoyed. In fact, everybody, I think, is annoyed with this fixture list. Manchester City, because they're having to play 2 games in less than 48 hours. So basically there's a full run of games on St. Stephen's Day. Liverpool fans are annoyed about this because they're away to Leicester at 8 o'clock on St. Stephen's night. That they're going to have to travel for 2-3 hours on Boxing Day, as they may refer to it when it comes round. Whereas Manchester City are playing the day after, on the 27th, but then on the 29th, they're playing again. So they've less than 48 hours, and City aren't happy about that. It's a crazy, crazy Christmas schedule. There's games kicking off at 8:15.
Right.
So Amazon Prime are involved. This is the first time we're going to see Amazon broadcasting fixtures. So there's... Exclusively, right. Every game. So there's a set of midweek fixtures coming up at the beginning of December, including the Merseyside Derby, which is going to get underway at 8:15 on a Wednesday night. And all 10 fixtures across the Tuesday, Wednesday will be live on Amazon Prime. And on St. Stephen's Day, every single game is going to be live on Amazon Prime. Do you have Amazon Prime?
No.
I do.
Why do you have that?
Well, I had this discussion with my wife there recently when she was questioning...
what are we doing with this?
Sure. I signed up to it to watch the Manchester City documentary. Right. And somehow it ended up my wife's credit card. It's only like £2 a month or something. So now I'm just stuck with it. Yeah. Because I'm like, for £2 a month, you know, the opportunity cost of me spending an hour trying to figure out how I cancel it. And now they have these games.
You're probably still subscribed to that Sport 11, was it?
Well, I was, and then I eventually, like, I'm clearly an easy target for all these things because until something came up on my phone randomly going, do you want to cancel these subscriptions? Yes, I was like, yes. I was like, what?
I have that. So. There was a Stevie G documentary up there as well. That's probably the main reason you went in.
Oh, well, actually, funnily enough, when I went home from work last night, I was on it because there's any amount of sporting documentaries. They do all these, like Manchester City, the All or Nothing. So there's one on Borussia Dortmund. There's loads of American clubs that've done it. Generally quite interesting. Like the Manchester City one, again, I think was destroyed by the fact that it's in English. So Pep Guardiola's team talks and his behind-the-scenes conversations with Mikel Arteta are generally in English, and they're the most simplistic conversations you've ever heard.
Because they're in English?
Well, I think they're clearly putting it on for the programme. There's no way, I'm not exaggerating to say that when they were playing Liverpool, they showed a clip of Pep Guardiola turning to Mikel Arteta in his backroom staff and going, their front three are really dangerous. We're going to have to watch them. Like, clearly they had all their proper conversations in Spanish.
You've just played in Europe the night, that week. You might have a knock-on impact in your domestic form. Might be
Exactly. One more story from inside the Times. James Maddison.
Oh, yeah.
So Brendan Rodgers yesterday gave a strong defence of James Maddison after the Leicester midfielder was pictured at a casino after pulling out of the England squad because of illness. Maddison was photographed apparently gambling in a Leicester casino while the England team were losing their Euro 2020 qualifier in the Czech Republic. But Rodgers insisted yesterday that his player had gone out to watch the second half of the England game because he couldn't visit his parents who were at the England game expecting him to be playing. So he had the flu. He was sent home because he had the flu. Obviously, he made a miraculous recovery. He's sitting watching the first half going, like most people, this is a load of crap. I have a load of money. What am I doing wasting my time watching this? Brendan Rodgers seems to suggest that when that thought came, it was, maybe I'll go over to my parents' house. He's like, damn, I can't go. They've gone to watch me in the match that I'm not playing in. And thought, you know what, I'll go to the casino.
I don't see the big deal.
I honestly don't see the big deal. People and the English media seem to have very quickly latched on to James Maddison as someone, maybe they see his potential as a footballer, which is clearly massive, but that maybe there's I don't want to say playboy isn't the right word.
Well, he's a bit of a gob on him, isn't he?
He does, but like I would say in a really good way. Like he's got a big personality. His post-match interviews are always brilliant. Like kind of both in terms of the emotion he has when things go well, but also quite honest. But then he turns up to a match in his pink see-through Louis Vuitton bag and everyone's like, bit flashy, and obviously he's young, plenty of money, out a little bit. I would absolutely agree.
Be Flawless is the headline here from Rory Keane in Tokyo on the sports back page of the Irish Daily Mail this morning. This is Joe Schmidt saying that we're going to have to be on our game. Schmidt calls on Ireland to deliver the perfect game. I think everybody accepts that we're going to have to play a little beyond ourselves, and the All Blacks are going to have to dip under their usual form. I'm backing Ole 100%, insists Woodward. That was the story we brought you a little bit earlier, that Manchester United chief Ed Woodward is right behind Ole Gunnar Solskjaer until they get thumped by Liverpool obviously at the weekend, and then everything changes. And an interesting interview with Arsene Wenger inside Wenger at 70. Life goes on for the former Arsenal boss. This is just fairly interesting guy that's still knocking around London, still going to the Italian restaurant that he likes to go to, still looking at his options.
Did you meet Arsene Wenger?
He'll be 70 next week. I met him after the Henry game in wandering around the stadium on the way down to the, I think it was the mix zone, so had microphone and everything else in hand, and opened the door to walk down the stairwell. I wasn't 100% sure where I was going. This guy was plodding on up towards me, and then I suddenly realised it was Arsene Wenger, and it was like, oh my God, this is going to be the interview of this game. Like, it's been like such a monster occurrence. Like, this guy at that time obviously was like one of the major Premier League personalities, had been on commentary duty for French TV that night, and I thought, here's my moment. Arsene, could I grab a quick word? I thought, here we go. As I started to hit record on the thing, no, you're all right.
I used to always find it strange, all right, when you go to cover France, even at Euro 2016, that Arsene Wenger was just there as a
knocking around
co-commentator, as a regular pundit, just in the media centre. Like, surely you're above this.
Yeah. He was very polite about the whole thing. It wasn't in any way rude, I wouldn't have said, or arrogant about it or anything like that, but I wasn't getting any high fives out of him. He was.
Are we going to do a Thierry Henry 10 years on special in next month?
Is it next month?
Next month. I must dig out. I did recently. So we were both at the game. Kevin Kilbane, I have the interview.
Right.
Post.
Right.
Match mix zone interview with Kevin Kilbane.
What was that like?
Oh, well, with Kevin Kilbane, it was, as you can imagine, eloquent, interesting, insightful. I don't remember a huge amount of Kevin Kilbane. I do remember it's the only time I've heard a player curse in a mix zone. I think Robbie Keane was literally, this is an effing disgrace. It's certain, without question, the most emotional mix zone I've ever been in.
And Henry himself coming out and fronting up was amazing. And it was like, I remember the tension in the mix zone afterwards. Yeah. It was a weird sort of jigsaw type room where the players had to come out one door. There was a right turn and the rope went that way. This is generally, they put like a rope to separate the filthy media from these beautiful footballers, and so they have to come out. The regulation at the time, I presume it probably still is, that they had to walk. You would have to walk past the media to get out of the stadium. So you had the option of, the media would always say, "Oh, do you want to do a piece?" And a lot of them would say, "You're grand." So there was this sort of weird shape where they had to come out, turn right, bit of a zigzag up this way, around a couple of pillars, and then up and out. And at some point, sort of halfway through, Henry just decided to stop. And obviously, every single person in the room,
like a crush, flocked onto him.
I think I remember getting in a question or two. It was brief, but it was like, Jesus.
He just didn't care.
Yeah.
Like, that was the main thing. It was that the French players were like, what's the issue? Yeah, let's move on with our lives.
Of course they were. We would have been the exact same, by the way.
If, right, and I'm just throwing this out there because we don't have much time to organise it. If we were to organise an off-the-ball roadshow with Thierry Henry on the 10th anniversary of the handball, would we sell tickets?
Oh, yeah. It would be sold out. You'd be giving out like free eggs at the door on the way in.
Did Richard Dunn ruin that whole night by sitting down and having the conversation with Thierry Henry?
I don't think so, because the more you hear about it, at the time it looked conciliatory, right? It looked like, battle is done, you sort of bend the rules, but listen, fair play to you, you're out. Like, the more you hear from Richie Dunn about that moment afterwards, he's like, no. I wasn't out. He was coming over trying to be all... Richard Dunn was just doing his own thing, sitting down, absolutely distraught. Henry comes over in a very relaxed manner, sits down beside him. But Richard Dunn, by all accounts, was not saying, oh, listen, everything, that's okay, don't worry about it.
Do you think Henry was fully aware of what happened?
Yeah.
Like, that he knew that this was one of the great robberies of...
Yeah, and he knew what was coming. He knew what was coming on the back of it as well, right? Like, last one for me here, The Guardian, the sports page of The Guardian's picture of Eddie Jones on coaching duty with a schools team in Japan, and do or die, Ball Jones channels his samurai spirit as England look to make their way into the semi-finals. So, you have one more for us,
One more, the hurled. We'll go for it, Murray, but it's probably more interesting considering what's coming up in a moment. Brent Pope's column, error not to ring Raj. Ex-Crusaders coach was not mined for info on the All Blacks. Last Christmas, when I was home visiting my family in Christchurch, Irish rugby legend Ron O'Gara, the then backs coach for Crusaders, kindly invited me to spend a day with the team. I witnessed O'Gara's influence on a number of promising young Crusaders players yet to make a name for themselves at the highest level. Roll on a few months, and several of those players are in the All Blacks team. I contacted Ronan this week because I was convinced he would have been approached by the Irish management, but as of earlier this week, he had not been asked for his assessment. As of earlier this week.
Right.